All right. All right, everybody, we're going to get started. And if you want to find that seat and turn your phones on silent. And I'm so excited that you guys are here. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it here today, being here. This is very special. And, welcome to this. And I think this is going to be a life-changing opportunity for all of us to be in the room, to be in the right atmosphere. It's not just what is taught that is impactful, but it's also being in the room. And I can't tell you the blessings that have come in my life from being in the right room. In order to receive certain blessings, you've got to be in certain places. And just in our last session, I was telling them, that God can do one blessing in your life that completely changes your life forever. And God says, I'll open unto you the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, one connection. I was just talking to Paul, and we were saying earlier how the only thing standing between you and your dream is a connection. Being in that right place at the right time to meet the right person. And I have gone on planes and will many times this year and paid thousands and thousands of dollars to Joanne and I we just flew to Cincinnati for literally overnight and to just sit in a room, and one thing was said that so impacted me and her. It's not even, I took pages of notes, but I walked away with like this, if I just did this one thing, it would forever change my life. And so don't underestimate, the power of a seed. The Bible says, despise not the day of small beginnings. Everything starts in seed form. And so be intentional, whether, if you're extroverted, great. And if you're introverted, great. But be intentional to meet people that you don't know. And put yourself out there. What do you do? How long have you been coming, to the church? Or what church do you go to? And I think this is so great. And Nate and I were just talking how one of the reasons we're doing this is because we're trying to create an environment where our businessmen and women and leaders can network and grow. Because, with 3 campuses, three services is really like 3 different campuses. It's like 3 different churches. You can come to the 8 o'clock and never meet someone at the 11:30 for years. I hear stories all the time. People go, I was in Target, and they said, what church do you go to? And they both said Creative, and they didn't know they both attend the same church because they go at such different times. And so how do you get those people in the room? How would you find them if we didn't do things like this? And so this is our heart to do it. We're not doing it because we have nothing to do. We all have stuff to do, okay? We all have a huge list of things we could be doing, but we're doing this because this is a heart and a ministry to not just invest in your business as much as I want your business to grow and to see it succeed. I also want your marriage to be the healthiest it's ever been. I also want your children to be the healthiest they've ever been. And I want you physically to be the healthiest you've ever been. And the Bible says, take heed unto yourself and the flock of God from which the Holy Spirit has made you overseer. So if you don't take care of yourself, you're not available to take care of anybody else. And, you're not the mom you should be when you're tired. You're not the dad you should be when you're tired. I had to send Pastor Joanne roses today. And I'm going to have to apologize to my kids tonight in our prayer time and ask them to pray for me because I've been sick kind of this week dealing with a stomach thing. And I know I've not been the person that I should be. I've been a little short. I know y'all can't relate to that or anything. I've been getting up real early at night and tired, but I got the medicine I need, so everything's better now. But I just know, and I go, I don't want to win on Sunday and not win at home, right? Everybody say we're going to build the home team. We're going to, because winning begins at home. And so I want you, as a pastor, I'm doing this too because I've been pastoring now for 2 decades. And I've seen so many people make really bad financial decisions and business decisions without having the right people in their life to talk to. And I'm a person of faith, so I'll get up and preach on faith. And the next thing somebody comes to me and goes, I'm walking away from my job. And we're going to live out of our car as a family to start our business. And I'm like, no, I didn't say that in the sermon. That's not faith. That's stupidity, okay? We don't want you to make these kind of decisions. And so I've just seen people make a lot of bad business and financial decisions because they didn't have the right people in their life to talk to. And so this is why God brought, and I believe with all my heart, God brought Trey into my life. Can we give Trey a big God bless you? God brought Trey into my life. And Pastor Jared Neiman, how many of you loved it when Pastor Jared was here? God brought Pastor Jared to be a part of this. And so this is our second year doing it. And the first year was a little new for me. So we're learning, we're growing. Every time we do this, it's going to get better and better and better. And so I want to encourage you to lean in, not just with notes, right? But lean in with your heart. Let yourself be vulnerable. I said in our last session, healing's in your humility. And so you got to allow yourself some vulnerability and allow yourself some transparency and to lower the walls so that we can get the help and the connections, that we need. But that's the heart behind why I'm doing it. That's the heart. And so I want you to grow in your marriage, your relationships, your finances, your business, your children, and you personally, and to value you and give yourself. I said this in the last session, but I just want to say it real quick too, is we're good at letting grace go down, but we don't always let grace come up. And I want you to give yourself some grace. I'm harder on I'm harder on myself than half of what I am on other people, right? I'm like my biggest critic. And so I want you to give yourself some grace and treat yourself better than maybe you've ever treated yourself before. And I think you being here is an investment in you. Trey and I spend tens of thousands of dollars of our own income every year to invest in ourselves. And so if you're not doing that, before, this is the first step to really doing that. And I pray that this is a lifelong thing that you do, is constantly investing in yourselves. You need coaches. Olympians have coaches. You should never outgrow having a coach in your life and a counselor in your life. So people think counseling's silly. It's intelligent. Unintelligent people wing it, okay? Intelligent people get counseling. If you pay to go to university, the first thing they're going to get you to meet with is a guidance counselor. They teach you from the very beginning, before you take your first class, you have to value counseling. And so this is what this is. So again, that's our heart from it. And Trey, let's give Trey another.
One of the things I'm thankful for is how many know it's not just the things that we do in life, but it's who we do them with. And so Steph and I are so thankful for your and Joanne's friendship. So thanks for being great friends to us. And man, we love you guys. And so I'm so thankful we get to do ministry together. One of the things I'd say is I grew up football, wrestler, rugby player. Our wrestling team was number 2 in the country. And it was great because it taught me to be competitive, always looking for more. But it's a challenge because I'm always competitive and looking for more. Anybody else that way? And one of the things that I believe is that we're in the right place at the right time with the right people this morning. And I want to encourage you, whether you had a great week or a challenging week, be present today, because I'm excited for my friend Slav to be with us. But one of the things that I love is I love getting in a room of people that are doing great things, and not just for themselves, but for the kingdom. Keith Craft has a quote that I love, and he says, greatness causes one of 3 responses. Either it inspires you, it intimidates you, or it makes you jealous. So I want to encourage you this morning to be inspired by what Slav has done, be inspired by what he's doing for the kingdom. And I want to encourage you that whether you had a great week or a challenging week, just to say, Lord, help me hear what you want to speak to me today. A couple of housekeeping things. I know you guys have the dates, but we're all sitting here. If you could plug in the next 5 events into your calendar, I'm going to give them to you quick. We've got May 3rd, that's Saturday. And then Pastor Jonathan and I were walking in wisdom, and we said, let's not give up people's Saturdays in June, July, and August. So instead of doing 1 per month, July 26th is the only summer event that we have. So May 3rd, July 26th. July 26th, we have Keith Craft coming in, by the way. And so anybody enjoy Keith Craft last year? And so he is a pastor and an entrepreneur, and he's had a significant impact on my life. So we're excited to share him with you guys again. September 6th is our 4th one. October 25th is the 5th one, and then November 15th. And then one of the things that we're going to try to do in the fall is we'll give you the next 6 months so that you can keep ahead and plug in these dates, because these are important dates. So good things. Another thing is we're going to announce it here. We're going to be using a tool. We're trying to figure out which app is best because we want to communicate with you guys in between each mastermind, each leadership event. And really our goal is if you're in a season where you're needing a connection, we may have that connection, we may not, but we want you to have a room that you can say, hey, I'm looking for this. And I think one of the things that's going to happen is we're not just going to help advance you, you're going to help advance each other. So I want to encourage you with come into the room not just to get something, but to give something because we've got a room full of very capable people. One of the things that Simon Bailey said, I shared this morning, but what do I need to do to get ahead here? One of the things I would just applaud you is that you're investing in yourself. Most people never invest in themselves. So way to invest in yourself. I really believe the Lord's going to use this. But we're going to bring up my friend Slav in just a minute. Slav and I went to Oral Roberts University together. There's a lot of great colleges out there. There's even a lot of great Christian universities. But what's really neat, if you don't know, is Oral Roberts was a televangelist. Over his lifetime, he raised over $1 billion for missions and ministry. And what's really amazing is he's one of the only televangelists that I know that never had any sort of downfall his whole life. Ended up living to be in his 90s. But he founded Oral Roberts University when the Holy Spirit, when the Lord spoke to him and said, raise up your students to hear my voice. What other university do you know that was founded on teaching people how to hear the voice of God? One of the things that Pastor Jonathan and I want to do is teach you how to hear the voice of God. So raise up your students to hear my voice and then to bring God's healing power to every part of the earth. So Slav and I, we both met at ORU, and I just found out this morning that the first time that the Lord spoke to each of us was to go to ORU. And so such a cool thing. And then one of my favorite quotes from Pastor Keith Kraft is, if you're taking notes, that your alignments are more important than your assignments. So I think a lot of times we're looking for the project or the career or the thing that God has for us, but a lot of times it starts with the right relationships. Do you have the right relationships for your next season of life? One of our goals is to bring people in the room to help you align yourselves with the right relationships. So I'm going to bring up Slav. I'm going to let him introduce some of his story, but he's climbed Mount Everest. Has anybody else here climbed Mount Everest yet? Pastor Jonathan and I are doing that next. No, I'm just kidding. But he's going to talk about some of the significant things that he's done. And how many know I just respect people that are doing things that are out of their comfort zone? Anybody else? He's also building a phenomenal business. He flew in from Dubai to be here with us today. And what's really neat is his parents flew in as well. Slav, could you have your parents stand up real quick? Can we give them a hand for being with us this morning? So we're just honored to have them with us. But Slav, I'm going to bring you up. He's going to tell his story. And I just want to encourage you to be all in this morning. Whatever's going on in your life, be present. And Lord, we just thank you for speaking to everybody in this room this morning. And God, we just thank you that we showed up because we expected you to show up. God, I thank you for making us sharper, making us better. And God, I thank you that as we grow better, everything in our lives grows better. In Jesus' name, everybody said. Please help me welcome my good friend, Slav.
Thank you, Trey. If we can dim the lights. Now this video is 3 minutes long. And the title is the summit of this event, right? Of this gathering. So I want you to imagine what and see, of course, what the summit of the tallest mountain in the world is like.
try it. Mo and Topka and I might be able to climb past you.
I can go over this way.
Yeah, give yourself like lay your center down about one more first step left. And we can climb right past you. You'll get the shot you want.
So these were the same conditions on our summit day. So we can end it. Yeah. So this is the summit of Mount Everest, and wanted to give you a glimpse of what it's like to approach the summit, to reach the summit. And today's talk is about the summit. So if I could introduce you to probably the 56 most grueling days of my life. If you imagine what the summit of Mount Everest is like, if you're flying on an aircraft, right, and you look out the airplane, window across the wing, 29,000 feet. I live in Dubai. The tallest structure in Dubai is the Burj Khalifa, which is 880 something meters. So Mount Everest is 10 times the Burj Khalifa. So I do talks occasionally for kids in schools to inspire them to go, after their dreams. And you tell, we're in Tulsa for kids to imagine, I think, Cityplex Tower. And if you tell them, Mount Everest is 20 times Cityplex Tower, they're like, oh, So if you look into, where aircraft are flying, that's basically where the summit of Mount Everest is. So this is myself with my Sherpa. And before I say anything else, by the grace of God, I am here. I've climbed some of the tallest mountains in the world. And first and foremost, glory to God that I've made it. So thank you very much. So here I am with my Sherpa, Tukten Dorji Sherpa, and I think very important to give credit to people that supported you, of course, my family that's here, and friends. So this was May 22nd, 2018. Some of us imagined that we're going to reach some height, some greatness, and I did as well, but I didn't realize the amount of pain and suffering and time that it would take to get there. And so as we relate what the summit may look like for each one of us, whether it's in business or family, whatever achievement we want to achieve, the amount of, the journey that it would take. And so I'd like to share this in terms of photos and experiences so you can relate perhaps to your journey in business. So 56 demanding days. When I speak about Mount Everest or any other climb, people think that it's something that they do in a weekend. Those weekend warriors, hold my drink, I'm going to do it next weekend. Doesn't happen like that. And to be honest with you, probably since 2018, I've maybe spoke to 30, 40 people that all told me they're going to do it. And to this day, we're still waiting. And we'll go through why it's such a challenge. So all of these photos are from our expedition. I'm very excited to share with you because it was quite life-changing, and I've gathered some lessons and some things we have learned. And this being called the event, the summit, perhaps you can find some lessons you can relate as well from this journey. So this is one of my teammates, Ian. Ian is 56 years old. He's a medical doctor from Colorado. I'm somewhere there in the back, and we're crossing a crevasse that's maybe, some of them are bottomless, so these crevasses which open up in the mountain, in the glacier, are, endless. So it's like basically walking between a couple skyscrapers. So, people are often asked why they do certain things, why run an Ironman, why go to the bottom of the sea. So the thought was, if I could succeed at something that big, that nothing would be impossible. I was looking for something outside my comfort zone. I was looking for a step change in my life. My background is oil and gas. I'm a petroleum engineer by trade, and I was living quite a comfortable life. Had a very nice apartment, a couple cars, and I found that I wasn't entirely satisfied, and being someone that went to a place like ORU, where we are challenged for greatness, and we hear of amazing alumni doing amazing things. Trey, you can probably relate. Every time in chapel somebody would come and they had an incredible story. And myself, I was wondering, what's special, what's unique about me? What have I achieved? What have I done? And at that point, 5-10 years into my career, I was just working as an engineer, and I wanted something different. And so the thinking was, if I could do this, if I could challenge myself physically, emotionally, financially, the reason why you don't hear of many people doing this is that it takes 2 months. Generally, expeditions start at the beginning of April and takes teams through about mid-May to do. It's quite expensive. So your minimum for a cheap expedition starts around $40,000. And then if you climb with a qualified team, as I did, that cost goes into $100,000. So this expedition wasn't very cheap, so it was about $120,000. And the time, the commitment, and the training is why it's very few people. So why? The question is, why does someone do something like this? When you want to have something different, you take that risk. So I'm here somewhere. I'm usually the one with the orange helmet, and that's our team actually coming from the summit on the summit ridge. So this is what's called the summit ridge, and it's quite narrow footing on the way down. So we speak on resilience, and we speak on resilience in entrepreneurship and why that's so important. And it's successfully adapting to difficulty and challenging situations. So now, as an entrepreneur the last 2 years, having learned that I can succeed in these type of environments, then nothing is as daunting as that experience for 2 months. And we were talking this morning about what's the worst that can happen, if you recall. Somebody was saying, hey, I took that financial risk. Well, on this mountain, what's the worst that can happen? You don't make it back, right? So the level of commitment in terms of training and preparation has to be top-notch. So some of the lessons I'd like to share with you, and how I'm relating it now to business and to my career. First thing is the growth mindset. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, we're going to introduce you to that theme. The second, which is we consider very basic, is setting goals. That, there's a lot of dreamers, ORU, make no small plans here, make no small dreams, but really it's not about dreams, it's about goals. It's about having a timeline, about having a deadline. And then third, which is very important about business, it's execution. You have to execute. Whatever that looks like, we're going to get through in terms of what it looked like for me in terms of mountaineering. And these 3 lessons: growth mindset, setting goals, and execution. So this is what growth mindset looks like to me, where I started. So my training journey was about 2 years for climbing Everest, and everything for those 2 years revolved around this mountain. So from my diet to my sleep, everything about it. I lived on I don't recall, 14th floor on a 44-story building in Saudi Arabia. There's no mountains to climb in Saudi, in the desert, in the dunes, so I climbed in the stairs. So before I climbed any mountain, I climbed 44 flights of stairs several times a week, and I would weight it up with a pack. And on a Friday night when people were out with their friends, around 1 to 2 hours, a couple times a week, I was in the stairwell. And the thinking was, I'm going to be very honest with you, I'm not some kind of tough athlete, I ran my first timed 5K, aside from the 2K, that 2-mile run that we do at ORU. the fun run, that's what they called it. Aside from that, I did my first timed 5K when I decided I'm going to be training for Everest, all right? So I'm not some, athlete. I just decided that, it's just going to start with a stair at a time. And I'm not weaker than anyone else. I'm not more different than anyone else. I understood that I can just train at a different level than anyone else. And that was the difference. So there's a movie, I don't know how many of you have seen Man on Fire, where Denzel Washington is training a girl, and she's learning how to swim. And she's talking about how these other kids are tougher than her, they're stronger than her, and there's a very strong, powerful line where Denzel goes, "There's no such thing as tough, there's trained and untrained, now which are you?" And during the race, when she wins, he asks her again, "Are you trained or untrained?" And she says she's trained. And that was the difference between winning and losing. So the mindset is, we're speaking about fatigue today. Yeah. You're not tired, you're untrained. That's the difference. You're not tired, you're untrained, you're unprepared. And the last one is, you're not exhausted, you're undisciplined. So how many of us are, as you train, and I realized how far I was able to push the envelope with every different peak I climbed, how much more energy I had to give. It wasn't a matter of, and even now in the business journey, when I am tired, it's just about rest and replenishment, and then continuing to train so that you're less tired the next day and so on, you're able to endure more. So training is very, very important. So this journey took 2 years. I understood that I wasn't going to climb Everest in a weekend. So I understood I needed to climb basically taller and taller mountains from the beginning. So we started with, of the 7 summits, I don't know, how many of you have heard of the 7 Summit Challenge? There's a few. So I started with a winter mountaineering course in the Alps. And the aim was to set bigger and bigger goals. We say, each mountain, just climb a higher one until you get to the summit of Everest. So here's a photo from Kili. Mount McKinley, you have to drag your own food, fuel, sled. On everyone's back is about 50 to 60 pounds, and then the sled is about 70 to 90 pounds. So you're dragging it across glaciers. This is Weissmess in Switzerland. And so when we're talking about goal setting, it happened to me. I had another photo I'll show you later. But yeah, goals. So write down your goal. For me, it happened when I just went to base camp. I understood this was I saw Everest, it changed my life. Everything became about Everest for me. I don't know if anyone has that kind of experience, but for me it was a spiritual experience at base camp. I wrote it down, I told my team, no one believed me. Everyone was like, no way, and my guides as well, I'm sure they've heard it 100 times. Everyone wants to climb Everest, sure, yeah, you're the next guy. And then I set a deadline. I made it a certain year that I needed to do it. And I set a schedule based on that deadline for 2 years for a training schedule. So I started with my first time 10K, my first half marathon, my first marathon, and working on the deadlines, all of the major climbs of the 7 summits I planned in a 2-year period. So I signed up for winter mountaineering course, I signed up for Kili, same night. I bought all my gear the same night. I think the first investment was maybe $20,000 in one night, including a training schedule for the first marathon. What I'm saying is, when you go in, it's the burning of the ships, Once I've signed up for the first marathon and Kili and bought the equipment, there's no going back, that was it. And what that had forced me to, of course I understood that for this, the rope work, the climbing, I wasn't prepared for it. But it forced me to develop the skill set to then be prepared for it. And taking the first step. The first step was signing up for the first time 10K in Dubai. That wasn't so difficult. Then the next one was the Petra Half Marathon. That was considered probably one of the more difficult races in the world because you run on sand, scree, mountains, up, down, quite a few people falling. And then after that, executing each one of those steps on that timeline. At the end, the reward, I don't know if after all the summits, I had that reward because it was just the next mountain. And after I came back from Everest, it was work. But find time to reward yourself so you can enjoy all of the steps that you went through. So this is the 7 summits. And I really like this quote: when eating an elephant, take one bite at a time. Because some of us, we want to take on that big, hairy goal right away, right? And I think from the wisdom in this room, there's people that can outline steps that are, easier for you to take one chunk at a time. So if we can, we just spoke about Burj Khalifa in Dubai, right? That's where it is. Then we have Kosciuszko, which is the tallest in Australia. We have Mount Vinson, Mount Elbrus, and so on up until you get to the death zone, which is the summit of Everest. So Camp 4 is at 8,000 meters. We'll go through the different camps. And the reason why I want to share that as well is so that you understand the experience, but also how during the different stages in our career or in our lives, we can climb higher and higher until we're in the stratosphere, basically. So this is, starting with Everest Base Camp. I don't want to say a lot of people, because how many people have done any type of trekking, climbing here in the continental US? Sir, where have you climbed? 4 times in Nepal. Which peaks? Oh, right on. Oh, right. Annapurna Base Camp? Oh, right on. Very cool. So you can relate to some of the altitude sickness. And so what makes it difficult to climb these peaks is, I'll make it relatable, like chicken at sea level. When you get to base camp and higher, you can't eat the same foods. You have lack of appetite. It's difficult to breathe. It's difficult to sleep. You have elevated heart rate. At Camp 3, heart rate's maybe 140, 160 beats per minute resting. And you're trying to sleep with that. So you're trying to not get sick because you have improper sanitation. You have to constantly be switched on in terms of focus. So you're not slipping, you're clipping the right ropes, you're not unclipping when you're not supposed to be unclipping. So all of that is going on during the climb. So this was my first experience in Base Camp 2016 when I decided that this was the challenge I'm going to do. So here we have the 7 summits. So we were talking about each one of these, how long they take. So Mount McKinley, the tallest in the U.S., is about a 2-week climb. Aconcagua is about a 3-week climb. Mount Vinson in Antarctica. And so at that point, after I came back from Kilimanjaro, I signed up for Aconcagua, bought all the equipment to then plan Denali and Vinson, and then Vinson was the stepping stone to then make the decision to climb Everest. Execution. So there's something that we have in the mountains when we see some new climbers, and the guys who've been outdoors, have done camping for some time, is they typically have their gear and so on dialed in, so they know where their sunscreen is, they know where their water bottle is, they're not dropping things all over the mountain, they're wearing their helmet properly, they got their harness on properly. And that's when you look at someone, you're like, okay, that's a professional. That's someone who knows what they're doing. And for the amateurs that are not able to execute, typically the teams will not take them on Everest. So you'll have to fill in a form, an application form that states these are the peaks that I've climbed and so on. So one of the questions that was there was, how far can you walk without stopping? I mean, for those who've done any kind of marathon running, right? You have your 26 miles, then you probably most likely can walk twice that or 3 times. But it's that premise of how far can you push yourself, how much can you challenge yourself to see, are you fit for this team or not? So a few more photos. So the team. So we had 3 guys, 7 camp staff, 10 climbers, 17 Sherpa, 100+ porters, hundreds of support staff, network, family, friends. So anything can be achieved with a good team. So here we're discussing business. We're talking about growth, about networks, about teams, about masterminds, about mentors, about coaches. Anything great is very difficult to achieve alone. A lot of the big expeditions are done in teams. And Trey and I were discussing how many of us are in networks, private networks, and so on, plenty. We'll talk about that later. But I relate that a lot to climbing this particular mountain. This is the whole staff and everybody that we were going up with. We have all of our Sherpa, and there's usually a ceremony where the Sherpas honor the mountain and then go up through. Here you have, in the distance you see, which is the ice fall. And the ice fall is one of the riskiest places on the mountain. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, ice blocks the sizes of houses and cars that basically shift through the day as they melt. And so we would climb in the early hours of the morning to make sure that they're not shifting onto us. So all of the gear, so preparing all of the gear from all the different climbs, basically dialing in from the boots to the coveralls to the sleeping bags to make sure that everything was fit. Everything was working as it's supposed to work from the boots, because even the resting climbing days were about 4 hours, and then the active climbing days were about 8 to 12 hours a day. We have a base camp where we lived it took about 13 days to get there. Stayed most of the time there preparing for Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. The mountain is climbed in stages, and the main reason is you climb high, you sleep low, you climb high, you sleep low, you acclimatize, you prepare for the higher altitude. And those who've done the 15, 16K understand the importance of that. Main reason being, and people prior to this time didn't understand the effects of altitude. So they thought that people aren't able to achieve the heights of K2 or Everest just because they were tired or they weren't prepared. So one gentleman decided to crash at about Camp 2 with his aircraft and try to climb, and they didn't understand the effect of altitude. Now, the effect of altitude, basically, your body's not able to circulate enough oxygen quickly enough, and at elevations of Camp 2 and higher, it's about 60%, 70% oxygen concentration. So us at sea level, we're at about 100% based on what our blood is capable of carrying. If you're 90% or lower, you're dead. Now, if you're above Camp 1 and higher on Everest, you're 90% or lower most of the time. Now, what that means is you have lack of metabolism, lack of appetite, poor circulation, and so on. And the higher you climb, the more these systems are limited, so you have to get used to them before you climb to a higher altitude. And as people didn't understand that, they were dying from, brain sickness, where basically the blood cells in the brain swell, and the brain ends up swelling into the back of, your head, or the lungs basically fill up with fluid. And so they did not understand these phenomenon that happen at altitude when they're not prepared. This is Camp 1, full of crevasses. This is Camp 2, 21,000 feet. So learning to live in these inhospitable situations for days and days and days at a time. And a lot of that came with preparing on other mountains but the challenge here also, aside from all the physiological challenges that the body's going through, the lack of sleep, the lack of appetite, consuming thousands and thousands of calories every day because we're climbing constantly, is the mental challenge, because you're hearing of people falling. I think per season's about 8-10 deaths average. So we're hearing of things happening in other camps. At this point, I'm 32. I'm thinking, is this for me? Am I supposed to be here? Did I hear from God? Did I? Is this, the old question, what's the worst that can happen? So here we are. This is Camp 3. Camp 3, if we were basically, anytime we walked out of the tent, we were tethered. Because if you slip and fall, it's thousands of feet down to basically Camp 2. This is Camp 4. So Camp 4 is known as the death zone. Main reason being that it's about 33 to 40% oxygen concentration. And once you get to Camp 4, you're basically on a timer until you die. Now, the objective, of course, is to get to the summit and back before you die. So the records that are currently being set on Everest are how many hours someone spent on the summit, or how many hours someone spent at Camp 4 or more without passing away. So here, it's basically you're on a clock. Brain cells are dying very quickly. People are starting to hallucinate. They're hypoxic. They start imagining things. If you watched in the movies, I don't know if anyone's watched the movie Everest about the 2006, I think 1996 Everest disaster. People spent a long time at Camp 4 and higher, and they were in a storm. They were losing track of where they were. People imagined seeing angels and ghosts and all sorts of things at this point. And the important thing here is to check on your teammates, check on a buddy system. We had, we'll go back, yeah. We had about, from the beginning, from Camp 3 to Summit, 10 oxygen tanks, so we would sleep with them as well. And from Camp 3 onwards, everyone is guarding their oxygen, because you have only one push for the summit, and for those who pushed and didn't make it, there have been stories of people taking tanks from other teams, unfortunately. So I'm sleeping with all of mine at night, had my mask plugged in always, and yeah, it's just an uncomfortable experience because as you're drooling, it's freezing, right? So because if you're sleeping, right, you're inhaling, exhaling. There's a lot of things, a lot of challenges that people encounter while climbing this mountain, particularly Camp 4. Now, all of that to say, there are a few remarkable stories from people who've climbed this mountain, and I don't want to go to the next slide. So if you were to guess how old is the oldest person that's summited Everest? Close. 80 years old. There's an Asian gentleman that summited at the age of 80. And the youngest? Close. 13. So Jordan Romero summited at 13. My year in 2018, there was a double amputee cancer survivor at the age of 69 years old that summited. So he had lost both legs. He was walking with springs, basically. He had just survived cancer, and he was 69 years old. So I was doing a talk at Jimmy's Bible lesson, and one of the guys in the back looked at one of the ladies in the back, I forgot her name, Grant Ann, whatever her name is. She's like, she was 75, so he's like, oh, you still have time for you, She's like, so when we speak on growth mindset, when we speak about what's possible and what's impossible, it's just your mindset that limits you. People, regardless of gender, disability, age, have accomplished incredible things, and I think this mountain in particular is a great story of people having done incredible things. Myself getting off the couch and just committing to a plan, committing to a training program, absolutely dedicating 2 years to it, made it possible. And when we speak on goals, the focus was just that summit, was just that peak. And I think all of us have a different version of what that summit looks like. So here we are, oldest person, youngest person, 13, and then the gentleman at 69 years old. So if I can encourage you, not exactly to climb Everest, but to, dare to go do something different, challenge yourself. For me at the time, we were speaking this morning, what have you done to come out of your comfort zone? At the time, I hadn't done too many other adventures. I hadn't gone out too much. I've just decided that this is something I want to do to grow, to learn, to invest into my personal development. And now it's just opened incredible doors from speaking to people like you, speaking in schools, sharing the story and saying, hey, challenge yourself, take that extra step, do something different. It may open up avenues and opportunities to give, to serve, to give back, but also have something to be proud of. A lot of us want to look back at a life that's well lived. We can say, you know what, we've lived to the fullest. From doing the 7 Summits Challenge, been able to go to all the different continents. We're talking about doing things in sevens, so seeing the 7 wonders, being to all 7 continents. I had an opportunity when we went to climb Mount Vincent to go to the South Pole. It's a whole other story, but a really, really fun experience. But also now being able to relate to people in their struggle, in their climb. It's tough. We look at the summit, this is the peak, like, right, the peak of the earth. But to reach there, the amount of commitment that it takes, all of us have different summits we relate to, right? Whether you want to climb smaller, higher. This is what it took to climb this particular one. So every mountaintop is within reach if you just keep climbing. So that was me there. I asked for a photo from the guy who went out across just to take this shot. So back to, and we'll speak more on what this means in terms of business. So our mindset, our beliefs, they either limit us or they help us to shoot higher. So have a growth mindset, regardless of it's never late to start, regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of your background. We're immigrants from Ukraine. We came to the United States with nothing. I grew up in what is known perhaps for a lot of people, the projects, the hood, and then to be on the summit of this mountain, I never imagined. Setting goals, so setting achievable, measurable, set deadlines for those goals. For this year, whatever those goals look like for your business, for your employees, for your team, for yourself, for your family, and then execute. It just takes one step at a time. Sometimes if they're a big, hairy, scary goal, just know that it's just that one step. For me, it started with that first half marathon. I knew that sometime down the line I'm going to climb this mountain, most likely, but I knew it was just the next step. So yeah, we have all our own version of Everest, whatever it is. I encourage you to achieve it. And dare to dream, dare to shoot high, whatever that looks like. Yep, that's it. Right on. I want to ask some questions.
Well, yeah. Will you share about your career and what you've transitioned to, and then I'll pull some chairs up. But just talk about your transition from the corporate world, what you're doing today, the opportunity you saw, surrounded by your passion. Just share some of that.
Yeah. So so we went to ORU together, studied engineering. I studied electrical engineering, went into oil and gas, and out of that went into petroleum engineering. The transition into petroleum engineering was actually quite interesting. I went to a career fair, and I interviewed with this company, and they said, we're in 92 countries, and ORU had a very advanced mission program. I said, yeah, go on. We do very remote work, and having done mission work in Africa and Russia, it was a very, very easy interview to convince them. I spent 30 to 12 years working for this oil company, and it got to a point where it was the next step change, which was, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm okay, but what's next? And so I've stepped into this entrepreneurship journey now 2 years. I run an event management company, but it's a membership-based supercar owners club. It's something different. So in Dubai, people drive, a lot of supercars. So we've created a business network where members pay. We have a 3-tier membership system from basic, premium to exclusive. And in our exclusive category are guys who drive hypercars and so on. And so what we've created was a system to filter our members for different opportunities, sponsorships, things like this. So we do events every 2 weeks. And for automotive enthusiasts from drives, track days, something interesting we're doing in 2 weeks exactly, we're doing an adventure to Saudi Arabia, which will be a 5-day, 4-night experience. And then we're doing a supercar rally in August. And what this has done, similar to these type of events, is made introductions, made relationships. And so that's what we're doing. Out of that, I started a production company because we're doing a lot of automotive content. And we have a team of 6 guys now. So we're speaking with one of the guys earlier that the corporate background has helped me now structure my businesses, because when you work in a good business, in a good structure, you see how to build teams, how to hire, how to promote, how to, encourage your employees, how to motivate them, and so on. So it's a bit of background.
So good. I want to talk about your business, but before we do, when you were climbing Mount Everest, it seems obvious, but was there a point you wanted to quit? Had you already pre-decided there was no way? What did that look like?
Yeah, very good question. So So for the summit, for the 7 summits, I told you what Everest cost, right? Yeah. So, but each one of these peaks, why very few people have done it. So they say that the 7 Summits Challenge costs about $200,000 to do. Now, the main thing is each peak is the gear, the flights, the preparation, the training, all in. So, for example, Mount McKinley, for those who want to climb the tallest peak in North America, I think it was around $15,000. Mount Vince in Antarctica is around $40,000, plus flights, plus gear, plus tips. So you always tip the guides after if you summit. So
There's a key there.
there is a key there, yeah. So no, so all I'm saying that look, I'm not here to flex or something. What I mean is there's a cost involved, and when I was on that mountain, I had spent everything. I was broke, and there was the summit or else. Like at that point, that was it. So there was no like, oh, I'm gonna give up.
So you didn't pay for it out of extreme wealth.
I didn't. No, not at all. No.
It took everything you had to do it.
It took everything I had, and I think that's when you really achieve. It's like when you give it your absolute all. There was no going back. Like that was it.
So in your summit, what was the moment you wanted to quit the most?
I can't say I had like a moment where I wanted to. I think the few times where I really was considering is when I needed to make the next payment, right? So, so I'm just being very honest with you. So no, but really, like count the cost, right? So the Everest deposit, which is non-refundable, is $20,000, right? So when you commit to that, and I was actually on a training program in Germany, and I just committed it. It was hailing outside, it was raining, I was sick with the flu, and it was about a month before the climb, and I'm sick as a dog. And I wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't want to train, but I hadn't trained in like a week, and I'm like, I'm gonna die on this mountain, like. So here I am, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm outside running, it's sleeting. I come to the doctor the next day, I'm sick, and she's like, whatever you're doing, you need to stop. Like, go rest, spend some time in bed. I'm like, no, in 3 weeks, you don't understand, I'm gonna climb this mountain. She's like, no, you can't. Like, you're not gonna climb this mountain. I was like, lady, you don't understand. I'm climbing this mountain, And yeah, but yeah, the financial hurdle was definitely a tough one.
Wow, wasn't this amazing? I mean, just to sit and listen to that. I guess the question I had was, what has climbing Everest done for you personally in terms of with your businesses or other challenges you've faced since then to think, okay, if I've accomplished this, this is now minimal. I can accomplish this. Like, how did it change how you attack problems in the business world or in life?
Yeah, very good question. So
You came down single.
we'll get into that. But yeah, honestly, the amount of DMs I got on the mountain just being real is unreal. So, I think the challenge is now, going back to your question, is the things to say no to. I think that's the struggle now. Because when I came back from the mountain, I requested 66 days off from my boss, first of all, right? So I just entered into a new role, and I was like, okay, I have 3 months to prove myself, because then I'm going to request a month off to climb in Antarctica, and I already paid the deposit, so there's no going back. And then I needed to ask another 2 months off for Everest. So I'm like, I really hope my boss likes me. So I was like, all right, I worked really hard for 3 months. And my boss calls me into his office. He's like, you know what, you've done really great. I'm going for Christmas holidays, and I want to have you cover for me. I'm going to put you. So, in corporate, if your boss is like, I'm going on vacation, he puts you in CC, it's like a big compliment. Slav is now in charge. The problem was it was during the Mount Vincent climb. Wow. I was like, ooh, okay. I said, sir, with all respect, I can't accept this great privilege. He's like, why? No, I'm telling you, you're going to do it. I was like, well, I paid this deposit to climb this mountain in Antarctica, and I'm basically telling him no. And he's like, well, if I tell you no, I said, well, I'm going to resign. So he's like, I'm your boss and you're telling me what to do. So it didn't go very well. So I said, look, please consider it. So I did the whole, this is my dream. I want to climb Mount Everest. He's like, okay. Anything else you're not telling me? Well, I need 2 months off, you know. He's like, oh boy. So he's like, okay, this guy's different. So then we had these VP meetings, you know, where the executives come and all this. So he's like, you know what? I did you a solid. You have a 20-minute with one of the VPs. Okay, great. So I sit with the VP, and this guy starts sharing his dream about sailing around the world, and we really relate, and that was amazing. And then I thought he wanted to talk to me about engineering strategy, all these different things, because I worked as an engineer. And he's like, put that stuff away. Tell me about Everest. So we went through that, and I said, amazing meeting. He's like, is there anything, is there anything I can do for you? I was like, can you tell my boss to approve my vacation? So he's like, solid, I can do that. So I said, you know what I'll do? I'll bring the company banner to the summit. So I brought up the company banner on the summit. It was on the calendars. And my boss, who didn't approve it, I left him a nice calendar on his desk. So, So we were saying how it's changed. So now in terms of, if you have the mindset that you can achieve anything, which I think a lot of barriers had broken for me, financially, physically, the way I looked at myself, because even growing up, I never saw myself as the toughest or strongest guy. And now, looking at myself and being like, okay, my body's actually a machine, because if you know what your body's capable of and how long you can go and how far you can go and what you can go through, then it's just about saying yes to the right things. And I think that's something that's a good thing and also a struggle simultaneously. So I've started these 2 businesses. We have a lot of opportunities. We're invited in a lot of places. If you imagine, we do events in Dubai, and we get 30, 40, 50 supercars. So where these venues invite us to come to do promotions for them, these kind of things. So a lot of opportunities have definitely opened.
You talked about it earlier, but the event that you're working on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Just talk about, you rented a private jet.
Yeah.
What's the cost of that? How many people are flying with you?
So it's 19 people. It's $115,000 round trip. The experience itself, so the tickets are $6,000, but we're shipping 20 cars from Dubai to a remote place in Saudi Arabia, and we're sorting things with border crossings and insurance and resorts and authorities and Saudi Tourism Authority, and it's stuff that is completely not related to my training, my background. I love the outdoors, but now I'm in the luxury sector, and it has been great. I'm not the, let's say, I'm doing well, but I'm not the richest guy, or I'm not the most influential guy in the room, but because of the background and the training, it's respect from the guys.
Lord help Slav get these supercars. They're different prayers. So one of the things too is you're using your business for ministry. What's the background of the average person in that room? So they're wealthy. What's their faith like? How do those conversations go?
So 90% plus are Muslims. So that's we're talking the backgrounds are different. We speak about God in different ways. What does faith look like to you? What does believing God look like to you? I share the fact that, okay, I've done this, but I really was praying every single day. You guys better believe I got really close to God on Everest. But that's a fact of my life. Every now and then I do forget that I did it. So like when you rang me up, I was like, oh yeah, I'll come out, I'll talk about it. But yeah, it's different. So in the Middle East, it's you don't have these type of communities, and I really cherish this moment with you guys, and the moment we had this morning where people are being vulnerable and sharing their stories and sharing their prayer requests. It's really refreshing. So these masterminds and networks that you're doing, keep doing them. I wanted to touch on that as well.
So you run some. Are you in any?
So our private members club, we have 150 members that are paying a minimum of $1,300 a year. Then it's $2,600 a year. Then it's $5,000 for the 3 tiers. I'm in 4 paid business networks. So one is $8,000 a year, and then a few that are $2,000-3,000 a year. But the main thing is for business, for growth, it's the right handshakes give you a lot of opportunities. I was at a networking event. We're organizing an adventure in Saudi Arabia, and randomly, I don't believe in randomly, but Saudi Tourism Authority representative just flew in for that weekend, is at that event, and is now setting up drone permissions, media permissions for us, police permissions. Like, it was just at an event.
So good.
Well, let's talk about what was one of the mistakes maybe that you made in your journey. And you know, I would imagine in that you had to say not just yes to some things, but no to some things. Maybe even some friendships or relationships or things. I mean, I'm sure you had to create distance in some areas, you know, because you're like, I'm pulling myself apart for where I'm going. It's not nothing against you, but for where I've got to go. So maybe just talk to maybe some of the mistakes, or you know, some of the things you had to say no to, and then also for just a piece of advice for someone in the room that might feel stuck. You know, what's some advice that you could give them to say, I would encourage you to do this if you just feel stuck in this area. You know, how can you take that next step to start climbing?
I'll address the mistakes of many. So I'm someone who, maybe like you, that shoots first and then aims later, right? So definitely on the, I'm a friendly person. I give it all from the beginning. Some of the mistakes, I've definitely trusted some people way too fast. I've been burned a few times. Once or twice on some large sums of money. So the trusting aspect, I've definitely learned to be more vetting. One thing I realized coming from the States, and something people say, how are the States different when you come here compared to the Middle East? People are very friendly here. They're very generous. They're very trusting. I have found, particularly when I left ORU and I came to the Middle East, people were like, whoa. You just have to stop being so nice, you know? So there is, and I learned the difference between being nice and then being kind. There's the dangerous nice, you know? And sometimes you have to tell people no, and you have to develop boundaries. And we in the church are so big on like serving everyone. You just can't do that. You have to limit your resources. So some of the mistakes have come from there. And I mean, seeing at the things that I've done, I'm obviously a risk taker. I've made some pretty bad investment choices that I wish I could pull back. So having mentorship and coaching and saying, hey, you know what? I'm about to pull this big trade, or I'm about to invest my money here. Maybe I should talk to Trey about that. Yeah. So those are a few things that I think in hindsight. Now, for people that are stuck, I particularly encourage to take a risk, take a step. You know, very simple one. Maybe it's a gym membership. Maybe it's committing to a community, committing to a service. Find that. Every year I try to find something that's outside my comfort zone. This is my aim. I'm finding less and less things, but it's like something I'm trying to find. Whether you're, you know, whatever that fear is. Public speaking for me had been a big fear for a while. And then after 2 years of hosting events, and I don't like the stage, I generally, you know, I want to rush through and get to the Q&A part because I want to give you the microphone.
So good.
How many events, so your business is 2 years old.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people think that becoming a business owner is just now you're successful. How many events have you done the last 2 years to make your business successful?
We did 32 events last year before we introduced a membership fee. So we did 32 events for free. We had some sponsored. A lot of events I paid out of pocket to prove the value, to prove the concept. We did a lot of dinners. For example, as my community grew, I understood I needed to get, Mike together with Cody, and I needed to sit them in the room, but I'm not going to be able to connect them. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to sponsor a dinner, and I'm going to bring 10 of these guys together. And then that's how the family and the club has started. We've invested a lot into it, but now regularly, every week, I'm adding members, I'm adding sponsors, I'm closing sponsorships. For our Saudi event, for example, so how we sell sponsorships, all the stickers on the cars cost a certain amount of money. So for example, to get your sticker on the hood of 20, 30 supercars, let's say, is $100,000. And then this sponsors the event. We make a profit on the tickets for the adventures, and then we make a profit on the sponsorships.
Fun question before we have more serious. What are the last 3 cars you've owned?
Last 3 cars. So I've owned a Porsche GT3, 911 Turbo S, and Audi R8.
Sweet.
Yeah, I like cars, so you guys can talk to me about cars anytime.
Before we open up for some questions, anything?
Yeah, I've got a good question. What advice would you give to business partners to say to their wives to convince them to let us go to Saudi Arabia on that trip with you?
It's a good
If
networking
Joanne and Steph
opportunity.
could be listening right now. Pastor Joanne. Yeah, we have to go with you. Done!
Right. There's quite a few couples. By the way, just to highlight Saudi Arabia just a little bit. So they're investing a ton into the Red Sea and Al Ula areas. If you have not seen them, they're absolutely gorgeous. The resorts are out of this world. We have some of the best resorts in the world in Dubai, and we've done adventures over 2 years into the best. We've stayed in the 12 best hotels of UAE. And then when we went to Saudi Arabia, what they're building is just out of this world. It's stuff out of a movie. So that's why we're going there. That's why we're bringing our guests. They're flying private, all of this stuff. It's unreal. We're staying at the Six Senses, Southern Dunes, and they've just invested in this experience where you don't want to leave. Like, I came for 1 night, and I was like, I have to stay for 2. And then we wanted to stay more. But that's why we're taking our VIP. So we're now in the VIP exclusive luxury tourism.
Does anybody have a great question that you'd like to ask Slav? Yes. Oh. Can I have you ask real quick here?
So how did I leave the engineering and... It was huge. It was a huge leap. Just to also give you contrast. So some of the biggest moves that I've noticed in my life in terms of opportunity and bearing of fruit was when I took a leap. I had a very nice cushion job after ORU. I was working in Tulsa. I had a nice office, lots of space, and they said, hey, there's an opportunity in Nigeria. I just fit out my office the way I wanted it. It was huge. And I had a nice F-150 truck. I was doing great. And the recruiter called me and said, hey, don't turn this down. It's going to change your life. I was like, well, told my folks we're going to Nigeria. That's how it is. So as soon as I got back from Nigeria, I got promoted 2 rungs after that. So I understood that these risks, these steps, they usually, if you step out, we were talking about it, creating capacity, right? You took a risk and you created room. So I came back, and they said, I worked exactly 6 months. Another email comes across and says, you know what? Saudi Arabia is booming. They need engineers. No one in the office wants to take it. I was like, all right, I'll go. So I went to Saudi Arabia for 3 years, and it was every year promotion, promotion, promotion. And during the 2014 oil and gas boom, if you recall, oil went up to $100, $110 a barrel plus, and then it collapsed because Saudi was pumping tons of oil. It's because of us. So what we did after that, after all of my colleagues were out of work, I was still employed. And because of the Saudi and Nigeria opportunity, gave me an opportunity in Dubai. I always dreamed about living in Dubai. And so basically the understanding of leaving comfort and something behind for something greater. And I'm going to be real. entrepreneurship, right? We talked about that roller coaster. These last 2 years have been a roller coaster. I've had events where I'm budgeting large sums of money. Our guests are having expectations. Last minute, sponsor pulls out. I'm in $20,000. I have to pay out of pocket. I've already invited people. I have a guest list. I can't let them down. I've been in those situations. So it's a journey. It's like that summit climb, the heavy breathing, the wind, and you just keep going. Yeah. No, I think a lot of my teammates are like, I don't understand, like we go through crisis or a situation, why are you so calm? You know, you just have that, even keel, peace, And it comes from going through hardship. If you've been through a lot of hardship, and you can tell people who've been through things, they have a certain steadiness about them,
That's good. Alex?
Big business goal. So my business is at this point like becoming easier and easier because with every event now we're making money. So and it's becoming easier to make these events. So our next one will be in May. I just decided we need money. Let's do another event. So the difficulty now is the scaling part. And I think my group of 150 guys, what I realize is when I'm not there, they're not coming. So it's like it's like being a pastor of a church. It's you have to find a replacement, you have to find a team, and then you have to scale. Because if the pastor's not there on a Sunday morning for a sermon, then half the congregation doesn't come. It's not good. So now the goal is to find perhaps a management team to take it over and run it. Oh, you're the guy. All right, I owe you a refund. So we launched a store, and then we're redoing the website. So we do hats and shirts and merch and stuff.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. So. No, I'm just kidding. Tatum?
I understand the level of commitment it took. I don't think so. I did speak to one gentleman who did the 7 summits twice, and he did it because of his son. And he did it with his son. So that's the never say never type of thing. Yeah. So Jordan Romero, who summited at 13, did it with his father. Wow. So and the question is, which mother let the 13-year-old go? That's the question.
You have one more?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When you're striving for something like that, like your life dream, your life goal, I later realized that the 6 to 8 months after, I really was, I don't want to say a depression because I don't really believe in it, but I really was at a very low point afterwards. I can't say I've ever struggled so much in almost every area of my life after getting back. And I'm like just being completely honest. And the amount of Everest climbers that I meet that after have that letdown, from men to women, it's pretty much the same, because the summit wasn't exactly the triumph. I got to the top and I was like, okay, I understand a lot of people die on the way down. So then there was the descent. I really had like a woohoo moment at maybe Camp 1 because I was like, okay, I pretty much made most of the way. And then there was the what's next, and then I went back to the office. So I think maybe that's why I was depressed. But
Well, 66 days off. You were basically retired.
good point. So yeah, good question. But I think there's a phenomenon to that name, right? To that reaching the top, and then I don't know the psychological term, but yeah, I struggled with it. And now it's still I think entrepreneurship, I think, is the next adrenaline risk-taking part now. That's the up and down that I'm part of.
Michael.
In what you do today, being with the elite level of people that have the ability to own whatever they want, how do you keep your alignment with God and work because you're living in the world with those people?
Oh, that's good. And back to your question, which I was really challenged this morning, right? Because we're talking about the effect of the room on you, right?
Yeah.
And we were talking about relationships that serve and no longer serve you. So I really, when I sat and I heard your story, and when I heard Cody's story, and when I heard other people's stories, I was really challenged. I was like, you know what? These aren't the typical day-to-day conversations I'm having with my guys, the elites, the VIPs, and the guys that I daily call up, Ferrari collections, huge real estate portfolios. They own everything. They can achieve anything. They can access anything. A lot of them are very, very empty, and the conversations go to making lots of money and then nothing else. And then when I'm hearing that someone is saying, "Hey, I want to build and develop homes to give away homes if I can," where's the gentleman? But I can't because it's illegal. I'm really encouraged by that, because that's not the most of my circle. So after this trip, I might have to evaluate. I might have to cut some of these relationships. But I'm honest. It's very difficult to keep that alignment, because most people, especially living in the States, we look at as living like normal lives, and then you go to Dubai and it's hyper luxury. Every day, like we're in 5-star resorts, we're in the best of the best restaurants, lounges, and as a club owner, all of the venues, hospitality, and so on, they're like come inviting, giving everything, from drinks, cocktails, whatever, So all of that is there, and the question is saying yes to the right things. I think that's the vulnerable side. Yes, it's still a struggle.
How do you, as a person, then, you mentioned in the other room that it's 90% Muslim. So how do you fellowship with other Christians? I'm assuming there's no public church.
There are churches. So yeah, they are. The formats of worship and the way you can do community is different. For me, I struggle with finding. I think nationality plays also a role in the type of people we connect with, because of mindset. So there are churches that are primarily Asian or Filipino, or so where there's barely any Americans, right? So when I come here, I'm like, everyone's open and talkative and friendly, So there's Russian Orthodox, which is also now my people. I've gone to a few of those services. So there's the Catholic Church, which is also quite, structured. So it is difficult, but weekly I'm able to attend service, and Dubai is open to it. That's a good point. The conflicts arise in teams often. I've led teams in corporate and also leading my team. I think what's really important is bringing them back to the vision of where the company is going. Show them the future. Show them their role. I've had some difficult conversations. So my team is mainly creatives, and if things are unstable, they can get emotional. I don't know how to put it. So they want like they want comfort, and they want you to like respect their space, and then like if they're not sleeping well, then they can like react on you. So what I do is so that like one guy I had, he wasn't sleeping well and he didn't have his gym regime right, and so I was like brother, this is where we're going. This is what I see your role is in the next month. This is what I see in you, encouraging them. And then, so we did an adventure in Saudi Arabia. I try to take them with me to cool experiences and things, ways I can give them value without necessarily paying a salary. So from experiences or to bringing them into rooms where they wouldn't be able to go in. One of the guys is going to be able to fly private with us. So like that's ways, but also I still have a very, how do you say, distinct boss versus, employee relationship. But yeah, giving them a vision of the company where they're going is very important. If they see there's no future, I think there's going to be more and more conflict. Go ahead.
You must be a leader. Cody.
So I was just wondering out of curiosity, because you obviously, you're from the U.S., and do you ever see scaling your business into the U.S.? It seems like a concept that would do well in like a Miami or L.A. or something like that.
Yeah, we're looking at it. Because when we came to, how can I put it? There's so many things you can learn that just work well from the church. I'm not saying taking advantage of biblical principles for their servant leadership works. Taking care of people works. Providing good service and caring about people works. So it's not a novel concept. And so when we bring it into business, and I have a marketing company and I genuinely care about the business and their marketing strategy works, they're shocked, and then they come back and they want to give you their money. And now we have the community with automotive and supercar owners, but I check in with my guys. I ask about their family. One guy actually said a prayer that on the way to the event, there wouldn't be any traffic. He shows up, he's like, bro, prayer works. Like, how did it, So like there's ways, like it works. So, and yeah, maybe to the US, maybe we will.
I think last one, Agnes.
Daily affirmation. So you're saying one goal, like how I would like to be remembered.
Well, two questions.
Two questions, yes.
The first question, because you just strike me as someone who kind of has a path and then focuses one thing that you do. But what do you do daily to keep you focused? Is there something you say to yourself?
Definitely, yeah. No, I think something very, very, very important for me in the mornings, because right now we're gearing up for this adventure in Saudi Arabia, and there's so many logistical pieces. So we're coordinating flights, we're coordinating visas, we're coordinating the private jet, we're coordinating the cars, all the guests are constantly texting me. For me, I find it so important to pray in the morning. Like that for me. And sometimes I don't say too many things, but if I just say the Lord's Prayer, like for me, that's enough peace, And when I wake up in the morning knowing that He cares for me, I think that's a daily. Right now is like moments of high stress and anxiety because we have this event in 2 weeks with 50, 60 participants, so many things going on. I am someone who's like very goal-driven. So my brother and I came up with this adventure. We want to drive around the world, and we want to set a world record in an EV of all cars. So we'll see. That's still a dream of ours. Why an EV? Not that I'm a big fan of EVs, but because it would be very hard, because we have to find charging in like Afghanistan. So there's so the target would be like I have these to be the most well-traveled person and like experienced person you had met. So I have to go to the North Pole. I think that's left. And then I would like to write and raise a family and give back and, offer people wisdom. Because, You know what's interesting, and I'm really getting to that point because my father challenges me constantly. He's a pastor of a church in Massachusetts, so he's all, you know, what's next? What's the point of all of this? And I think as Solomon, who has seen and tried everything and been everywhere, he's just realized that it's all for nothing, unless there's a way to give back, and unless there's some wisdom that you can give or share from your experience. I think that's it at the end. Because if you do travel for yourself, it's entirely selfish. And I have found that climbing all of these mountains, unless there is some lesson to share, it's a completely selfish activity.
One more. One of the things I've found is that the voices that we listen to determine the course of our life. What voices do you listen to at your season of life?
In terms of what I'm reading or who mentors.
When you go to make a decision, who do you run your decisions by?
I have, business partners, that's in the natural, right? But I have mentors. My family is a very good sounding board. And then I have a couple key friends that also, one of them, believe it or not, is a Muslim. But we talk with him about God all the time. And we talk about guidance and trust. And knowing that God aligns the next step for you. He's also a believer in that. So we can relate when things happen that we're like, that was destiny, and he's like, yeah, bro, and he's a Muslim, so
yeah. I love that your mom and dad are here. So good. You're 30.
I'm 38.
You're 38, and your mom and dad are here. I think that says so much about you, and says in a wonderful way, and so much about both of you. And I want to raise young men and women that have the dreams. I'm just sitting here. When's the last time any of you were in a room when somebody goes, I'm trying to break a world record? I'm just trying to think. Because we can tend to lower our dreams to the people we surround ourselves with. You know, and you don't even, it's like things that don't even cross your mind. Of breaking world records or, striving to accomplish this, thinking outside of America. So many people think America's the world. They think God's American. And it's there's so much more to the world than America. I love America, but, I don't know, it's because my family's from different countries, I guess. I don't know, but it's just being in rooms and atmospheres with people who are thinking on totally different levels. And what that does is it brings you up. And I don't know, I want to raise children that dream about things that are in other parts of the world, people who have big dreams to accomplish big things. And you're not going to raise kids like that if you don't have those big dreams. So when you talk about your kids, for me, a big day was going to I don't know, we'd go to, it was Red Lobster, we're going to Red Lobster, or we're going to grandmom's house, and my kids, their norm, I couldn't even think of. What their norm is, I was like, what are you talking about? One of the things that's going to change for you in this is you're going to think on such a higher level that your children are going to think on a higher level. And you don't realize it because when Joshua talks about, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. When your mindset changes, the mindset of your children change. The mindset of your grandchildren change. And so being in rooms like this that elevate your thinking, being around people who are going to celebrate the wins and helping you think about what's possible is the heart of why we're doing this. And I just want to say to you, too, thank you so much, for being here. Thank you for investing. And thank you for dreaming. Thank you for raising such an amazing leader. I want to honor you. And I know, Trey, go ahead.
I want to say thank you to Trey. And I big gratitude for you for the hospitality and the invitation. And you know what, guys, something about Trey. Trey's a real friend. And through this weekend, I really I got to experience that on the hosting side and the care, and there's some details I may not entirely share with you, but Trey's a real friend, and I want to say thank you, Trey, for that. And I think you guys have someone very special, if you consider him a friend. And thank you for that. So there's very few people like after ORU that I still keep in touch with or still have even the inkling or intentionality to keep in touch with, and you're one of those. So thank you, man.
You're one of those for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
I'm not going to share a big lesson, but I just want to share a story quick. So, Jaden, if you raise your hand, we're talking this week. We went to coffee, and I won't share his story, but basically he's had some life changes where he had a dream of building a business, and it looks like that could be changing. And I started sharing with him some of the things that the Lord's done in my life, and I started thinking about when I applied for ORU. I shared this a little bit earlier, but first time the Holy Spirit ever spoke to me, I was planning out my businesses, and the Holy Spirit dropped in my spirit to go to ORU. And you've heard me say I felt like God was trying to ruin my life. And I waited 2 weeks to tell anybody because I was like, if I tell my parents this, they're going to be so excited I'm going to have to go. So I was waiting for God to change his mind. Has anybody ever been like, Lord, just change your mind on this one thing? And I ended up sitting down with my dad, and I was like, hey, the Lord spoke to me, who are you? I'm going to go. And he goes, hey, that's great. How are you going to get in? You have a 2.1 GPA. You've done homework twice, all of high school. So I get B pluses and A's, and I never turned in a homework assignment. And I had teachers that liked the wrestlers, so they would just do me favors, which is probably not a good thing. But I told my dad, I said, if the Lord wants me to be there, if he spoke to me to be there, there's going to be a way. So long story short, I ended up applying to ORU, and they had just announced that they were starting something called a bridge program, which was a way for those that wanted to go to college that didn't do high school well to have a way in, to be that bridge. In your first semester and second semester, you would basically have a study hall where they would make sure that you were doing the work. And so my first semester, I had a 3.46 because the Lord gave me a vision for my life. And I was telling Jaden, you don't have to be great in high school to be great in college. You just need to catch a vision for your life. And so I want to encourage you, whatever season you're in, if you have one takeaway, I want you to think about what's the vision that you have for your life. Because one of the things that helped me change from being a C student to, a B plus student was that I caught a vision. And so I applied to ORU, and they had just started this program, so they let me in on the bridge program. And then my dad goes, hey, that's great, you got in. How are you going to pay for ORU? So every obstacle, So I remember thinking, I don't know how I'm going to pay, but if the Lord told me to go, he's going to make a way. And so he goes, why don't you check to see what scholarships are available? And I'm like, scholarships for kids on the bridge program? Like, what scholarship is there going to be for someone that just barely made it in? And they had just started a scholarship that if you had a parent that was a pastor and an alumni, they gave you a scholarship of $10,000 a year. So I apply, I get $10,000. My freshman year, I went out for the RA program. That's how we met. Which at ORU, you weren't just a resident advisor. It was really the best leadership program on campus. And so as a freshman, I got accepted to be in for my sophomore year. And the scholarship, you might know, at that time, the scholarship for an RA was like $3,700. And I was like, man, I don't know if this is worth all the work. So I get into the program, I'm going back to school, and they announced like, hey, we haven't given the RAs a raise in like 15 years, and they doubled the scholarship. So here, I'm not supposed to be there. I get in. On the bridge program, I get a scholarship for $10,000 for being a pastor's kid. I become an RA, which is like $7,000. So now I've got scholarships of $17,000 a year. Meanwhile, my cousin has a 3.9 GPA, and I think he got like a $6,000 scholarship. So the reason I say that is favor isn't always fair, but one of the things I've learned is that if I say yes to the things that God's called me to do, he makes a way. And so I ended up getting involved in the RA program. I got involved in missions, and I sat at a solid B student. I got enough homework done. But long story short, one of the things that my parents always taught me was to say yes to things. And instead of waiting on God to tell me what to do, to assume it was a yes unless he told me no. And long story short, it's been 14 years since I'd been to campus. And really, I look and the Lord has always just provided for me. And I just got in the habit of saying yes. But a couple of months ago, we went to campus. Yellisay, my business partner's wife, Alicia, is here. Yellisay, will you raise your hand real quick? So if you have Yellisay hand, I wouldn't have a business that I have without Yellisay. Very, very gifted. He's so smart, it's really annoying. Anybody have a friend like that? And so we went to an ORU chapel, and I hadn't been to an ORU, Oral Roberts University chapel in 15 years. It would be 14 years. And I walked down, and I had just met the president of ORU one time. And I told these guys, I said, I'm going to bring Steph down. I'm going to go say hi to Dr. Wilson. And So I walked down and I said, hey, Dr. Wilson, Trey Peterson just wanted to say hello. I had met him one time in 2010. Other than that, we're Facebook friends. And I just wanted him to know who I was. And he said, Trey, what do you do again? And I said, I'm in wealth management. I have a leadership and coaching business that we just started. I'm on the teaching staff at my church. And he looked at me and he goes, I thought so. He said, we're starting this program called the David Green Global Leadership Center, which if you don't know, David Green is the founder of a small company called Hobby Lobby. Anybody ever heard of Hobby Lobby? And so they're billionaires, and they're the ones that have saved ORU. They've given, I think, north of $200 million now to ORU. And so he looked at me and he said, hey, he said, I want you to be the executive director of global leadership at ORU. And I was like, I've met this guy one time 14 years ago. And so he goes, you're going to have to move to Tulsa. I said, I can't move to Tulsa. I said, but let's talk. So fast forward like 6 weeks, he called me and he said, hey, he said, we want you to take this position. We've turned down 3 people because they wouldn't move to Tulsa. I've told them that you can't do it virtually, but we're going to move some things. So if you're here a handful of days a month, we want to give you this position. And he said, but if you can't do it, we want you to be on the board of trustees. And if you don't know, to be on the board of trustees is probably one of the greatest honors coming from ORU. But I went thinking, here I went from the bridge program to an invitation to being on the board. And so the reason I say that is if you're in the room, and I just left honestly with tears, I was like, if you're in the room and you feel unqualified, you're in the right room. Because one of the things that God loves is to use unqualified people that say yes to him. So I just want to encourage you to keep saying yes to opportunities. And I can't remember who said it, but the quote is, if you get invited to do something and you don't have the abilities to do it, say yes and then figure out how. So I just want to encourage you, thanks for saying yes to this. Keep saying yes, because I believe that God has significant things for everybody in this room, and I believe this is just the start of something great.
So good. Come on. Can we give Trey? Thank you. I love you. And Steph, we're going to pray and send everybody out into their day. This has been a very special start, I think, to our second season of Summit. And before you go, unless you just got to run because you got an emergency, connect with somebody. Connect with somebody, get to know someone, and that's important. Just developing that culture of getting to know someone, putting yourself out there and say, hey, well, let's connect. Well, what can we do? How can we network? You'd be surprised who knows somebody you might know. Yeah. I go all over and people are like, oh yeah, I know Trey. I'm like, of course they know. Of course you know Trey, right? So it's awesome, But I'm excited for this, and I want to ask you to pray for this. When you're in the morning spending time with the Lord, ask God's favor and God's blessing among the people, and ask God for divine connections. And as the year ticks on, whether it be in church or outside of church, if you meet somebody that you're like, you know what, I think I have something that you should be a part of, connect them to Trey and say, hey, be a part of this, because we're going to be onboarding some people, that qualify for this throughout the year, because we really do want to be that ministry help to somebody.
2 asks. Number 1, if you could think to just, if you had a good time today, if you would post about it, we want the word to get out. I know we're repetitive, but Pastor Jonathan and I are using all of the revenue to bring in quality speakers. We're putting all of the money into this. We're both going to spend more money into this than actually comes in, so we're not receiving dollars from this. But 2 things. If you could download the app right now called Telegram, we're going to add each of you to a group chat, or we're going to have conversations going on in between masterminds, in between leadership events. So we'll have 2 different chats, one for the first group, one for the second group. But that way we can stay connected. We can let you know as new things pop up, remind you who the guest speaker is coming up, and we just want to do more life together that way. And
we're not taking anything from this one because it's our church, but if we do it in other places of the country, that'll be different.
We're going to be building a business.
We're building a business. So if you see us doing it in other parts of the country and we're doing things, we are charging and things like the business from that.
Yeah.
I have nonprofits, but everything I do is not a nonprofit. But this one we're investing back into it. Yeah.
Well said. Thank you for clarifying. All right. Anything else you want to close with? Can we pray over Slav really quick? Yeah. All right. I'll start. You want to close? I'll put you in the middle. God, we just thank you for the opportunity to be in the room today. Lord, I thank you that We have a desire and a heart to be kingdom builders, to advance your kingdom, to advance the cause of Christ. God, I just thank you that even on a Saturday morning when many of us have businesses and we spend 40, 50 plus hours a week at work, when we've got kids at home, people that lined up sitters, they did what it took to be in the room. God, I just thank you that Slav didn't just share his story, but he shared about how the Lord is working through his life. God, I thank you for the time that he spent with us, flying from Dubai to be here. Lord, we just thank you for all the good things that you're doing in his life. And Lord, I just thank you that everything that's happened in his life is small compared to what's coming. God, I thank you that the business he has, that in the next 6 months, the next 12 months, the next 2 years, that the business would grow so significantly, and that even inside of these car clubs, that there would be opportunities that it would almost be like time would slow down, and that Slav, you would know that it was a moment that you're supposed to speak about Jesus to that person. God, I thank you that in the next few months, in the next few years, that the business would be so well, that the wife that you have for him would be even greater than he can imagine. And God, I thank you that there'd be moments that he would pause and he'd just say, I had no idea that life could be this good. Lord, I thank you that as you bless him, that you make him a blessing. Lord, I thank you for momentum in his business. And God, I thank you that every day that he serves you and that he puts you first, that everything that he touches would be blessed. God, we thank you that in your word, that it says that you look throughout the whole world for the righteous, that you may bless them. And we just stand as a group and say, Lord, here's a man, bless him, bless everything that he does. And we just pray for increase. We pray for peace and for great health in all the things that Slav does.
Lord, we ask for divine favor to be upon him. And Lord, we speak it in your word, Luke 2:52, you give him favor with you and with man. God, I ask that everything he puts his hands to would prosper. And Lord, that you would open the windows of heaven over his life and pour out blessing that he would not have room enough to receive. God, I ask that you would reward him with visions and dreams, Lord, that only come from you. Lord, let him have visions and dreams, Lord, of his future wife, his children. And Lord, that you would bless him with the gift of family. And God, that all of his children will know you, love you, and serve you all the days of their lives. God, I ask for increased favor and influence upon his life. Lord, that his words would be that of medicine, that his words would be that of healing, to heal the brokenhearted. God, that when he speaks, he would be a prophetic voice, Lord, of purpose into people's lives, that he would literally help them discover and find their purpose, that he would be a divine connector in the kingdom of God. Lord, just building connections with different businessmen and women and businesses, Lord, that people will walk into their destiny because of the connections that he has made. And Lord, I ask that you would go before him, put guardian angels around him. Lord, let no harm, no destruction, nor anything negative come nigh his dwelling. Thank you, God, for bringing him here. Thank you for the words that he spoke. Lord, that they were salt and light. May they be seeds in our heart that bring forth fruit. Thank you for the huge dreams that you've given him. Lord, that he doesn't think small. And Lord, thank you today that he's helped remove the lid that we've placed in our own heart to dream bigger. And I bless him in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name. And everybody said,
all right,
amen.
make it a great day. Thanks for coming out,
Thank you,
everyone.
guys.